the whole point behind this is to highlight and even humanize and show the heart behind Hawaii's top business people. And I have the pleasure of having my dad on today. And I made an introduction for him so I wouldn't leave everything out, although I'm going to leave a lot of things out. But here's a brief, fun introduction that I have for him. My dad, Patrick Souza, is a legend in Hawaii's mortuary industry. He worked his way through every job in the business, from picking up bodies to being a funeral director, and eventually became a vice president of sales at Mililani Mortuary. He's got that rare gift, the ability to comfort people at their lowest and still lead with confidence and class. People all over the island know him and respect him, and not just at Costco or Home Depot or Ross or TJ Maxx. He's the one who taught me how to talk to people, how to lead with heart, and how to never settle, especially when the service is off and he's asking for the manager at a restaurant or at another store. Let's welcome my dad, a true people person, a power player in the most delicate business there is, Patrick Souza.
Thank you.
yeah,
Great introduction.
yeah. I think we did leave a lot of things out in there, but we got the important things. Yeah. So, vice president, you retired as vice president of sales in, like I said, the most delicate business in Hawaii
Mhm.
or in general. You ever thought you would be vice president at a major mortuary in Hawaii?
No, never did. Never
How,
thought that
how
I
did
would
how did that all
rise.
start?
Well, my career kind of started around 1975 or so when I was attending Frampton High School.
Hmm.
I met up with a friend. His uncle owned Baltic's Mortuary. At that time, he was just a night watchman where he answered phones at night,
Hmm.
took death calls, and also ran like the refreshment center during the services. So I went from helping him a couple nights a week to like, a couple weeks out of the month, and before you know it, I was a full-time employee there. So I would work from like 5 at night to 7 in the morning,
Hmm.
and after 6 at night, I would be taking death calls. Any kind of calls come in, whether it was a home death or a hospital death. And then in the morning, I get off at 7 and I head to school. And I just repeated that cycle every day.
You talking about high school?
No, well, when I started.
Oh.
So yeah, so I in the business. So I basically started doing that. Then I went to high school. Then as the time progressed, I graduated in '77. I became a apprentice mortician,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I had that opportunity. Besides delivering flowers to the graves and doing all that kind of stuff, I did that. And then eventually in 1980, I left Baltic's Mortuary, and I had opportunity to move on to Mililani
Hmm.
and become a licensed mortician there. And that's kind of like how it kind of started.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. So, you first started off as a night watchman.
Yeah.
Explain the whole night watchman thing. I know you kind of
Yeah.
explained it a little bit. You answering phones at wee hours,
Right.
but what was that like? Because night watchman means you actually live on premise.
Yeah. So I lived at the mortuary. I had
Yeah.
my own apartment, which is next to the morgue.
Yeah.
Separate walls.
Next to the morgue.
Yeah, separate walls, separate doors,
Yeah.
separate entrances. But so if there was a death at home, the family would call the mortuary. It could be 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. And my job was to set up the removal service, to go to the home,
Yeah.
pick up the remains, bring them to the mortuary. I would have to get up late at night and unlock the morgue door for the attendants to come and bring the body there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty much what a night watchman was.
Yeah.
And there was only a few companies that had a night watchman on premises, and Vortex was one of them.
Mm-hmm. So you worked with Bortux at the time.
Yeah, Vortex Mortuary.
Yeah. And it seems like you have a lot of stories for that whole thing too, which we can get to later. But okay, so night watchman, slept at the mortuary. Then how did you get into embalming, mortician again?
Around 1977 or so, and a little prior to that, I was already working in the morgue, helping out, dressing, makeup, whatever it is. And then in 1977, I became an apprentice mortician.
Mm-hmm.
One thing good about Hawaii, you just apply for apprentice program license through the Department of Health. It's a 2-year apprentice program. And after the 2-year program, you can take the state board exam to become licensed mortician. So I just continued as an apprentice, and as a night watchman. And then, like I said, August of 1980, I was given opportunity to go on to Mililani to become a mortician, apprentice again, until I became licensed in like 81.
Yeah.
And then I just continued from there.
So tell us about that whole experience about being a mortician, because I mean, we're supposed to get into this a little later, but you are doing things that people should never do or should never see.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say should, but most people will never see and do what you did.
Right.
So
Well, it was a very humbling experience starting off. When I was a young kid, I used to have, my sisters used to tease me when we lived out in Kailua that as a funeral was coming down the road, that they're coming for me. And I used to take off. Because I said, hey, the heck with that.
Patrick, they're coming for you.
They're coming for me. And so I used to run and hide. So I would never in my wildest dream think that I would be, in the mortuary industry. My dad was a retired HPD officer for many years. I always wanted to become an HPD officer. But God had a plan. And I guess he put me in the mortuary industry. So it was different. It's not something that everyone talks about. We used to go to parties and stuff like that, and the people turn their attention from the party to me because they want to know about the mortuary. And not every day someone picks up the phone and call the mortuary to say, hey, by the way, how much is a funeral today? How much is this or that? So it was a really great experience. I got to meet a lot of people throughout the industry and families that I helped. And it was, I don't regret it. It was a wonderful experience.
Yeah, so that's it. You had almost every opportunity to do something else. Like you said, your father was a cop.
Right.
You wanted to become a cop.
Right.
And you didn't. And you still kept running back to the industry.
Right.
So I guess the question is, what made you keep coming back?
That's a good question. I think a lot of it was the families I helped and the families I worked with. I mean, they just really depended on me. They never had the experiences, of doing a funeral arrangement or stuff like that. And those that did have experiences, they had negative experiences. So when they got to meet me, I was able to, be honest about things. I was able to help them because I put them first. I treated every family like they were my own family, and I just helped them. So every time I thought, there was times that I said, I think I'm going to get out of the industry. I'm going to move on. But it just never happened. Every time I try to move on, another family would contact me, and it was a bad situation. I helped them out, and so it kind of gave me that drive to continue to stay in the business.
So that's when you kind of realized you had the gift for this work.
Yeah.
Where I have every opportunity to leave, but I'm not going to leave. I'm going to continue to stay, even to the point where you did face burnout from all those long hours of working. And you still stayed in it.
Yeah.
Because most people would change careers, right? But you didn't.
I didn't. Yeah. As a mortician, there was some trying times. There was times that people don't see this, but when a death occurs, and when they see them at the hospital, by the time they come to us, it's a whole new picture, right? So we don't, we never seen this person before, and we're trying to make them look the best we can with what we think, how they should look. And having cases that come from the medical examiner's office where they're in pieces. I mean, it's a tragic accident. So, it was a tough time. As I was, experiencing embalming and stuff like that, there's a lot of times that I was at Mililani late at night by myself. So like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning embalming. And that's kind of creepy. But they would be like, if my boss goes on vacation, there was always 2 of us. Richard Uehara was my boss, and he was a wonderful man. But there was always 2 of us on premises. But whenever he went on vacation, I would be there by myself. So a lot of times I would be embalming 2 or 3 bodies, and there's still 2 or 3 bodies in the hallway waiting for me to embalm them. So it was a tough time. I think what sometimes slowed me down and kind of emotionally affected me was when I had to experience kids, babies, young adults, and that was a rough time because I just, I was starting my own family, and to go home and see, what I just seen, it was rough. It was a tough time, as far as on that.
So on that note, how did it change for you? How did the business change for you? How did your emotions, your mental capacity change for you once you started having a family? Because I know in the beginning, you mentioned before, but your father-in-law, my grandfather, had an issue.
Yeah, he was a typical Portuguese.
Yeah, and that issue with you as a person.
No.
An issue with what you did.
Yeah. When I first met my your mom, and we already got married and we lived. He just gave he always was not in support because typical Portuguese from Hilo, the Madeiras family, and he just didn't like the idea that his daughter was going with somebody that's touching dead bodies, So, But then we kind of got over that soon. So what kind of really gave me he gave the support to me is one night about 2 o'clock in the morning, we're sleeping. He came pounding on our bedroom door to let me know his sister was on the phone, that the brother-in-law just died at their home in Waikiki, and the sister was frantic. She didn't know what to do. So he asked me, please help her. So when he sat in the living room and he heard me talking to her and explain to her what's the process, you need to call the mortuary, we need to pick up the body and make arrangements and all this. He became my biggest fan after that. He would go to Alamona Shopping Center, hang out with the retirees, and try to convince them to call his son-in-law if they ever need anything. So it was a very
hey, if you're gonna think about dying soon,
contact me. But it was kind of funny. But after that, he was in full support. And come on, who only my wife was his daughter was the only child.
Yeah.
He didn't expect his wife to be with a mortician. You know what I mean? Maybe a cop or a fireman or something, but not a mortician. So that was kind of crazy during that time.
Yeah. But then so that whole family life kind of changed, and it changed for the good.
Yeah.
But then you did experience a burnout. You did experience anxiety, depression, and stuff. Now, do you think that's something that was probably from before, or you think you didn't realize working at the mortuary, working in a very emotional, type of job, that had some type of effect?
I think it had a lot on me. At one time, I was suffering one time from stress, anxiety, depression for a little while, and I think it all had a lot to do with taking on all this stuff in the mortuary, taking the burden away from the family, just put it on myself. So it kind of made it really rough sometime, and I kind of got through that. I think what made it got easier is as the families, I could see that they depended on me so much. It was strange too. A lot of times, there'll be a problem in the industry, not only at Mililani, but in the industry, and the families ended up calling me. And tell me, hey, I have a problem and we need help, and no one will help us, and I help them. And then I would ask them, who contacted you to contact me? And they would look around the room. There'd be 5 or 6 people in the room, and they would say, who told us to call Pat? And no one remembered who told him to call me. So I started saying, wow, there's somebody out there that's watching over me, to watch over families. And so that kind of gave me a drive. I got to meet, good families. I actually met my wife through the mortuary. She wasn't a client, but what had happened was I had a funeral service for this family from Hawaiʻi, and as a mortician or funeral director, you would see the families before you leave, just to make sure everything's okay. So as I walked in the chapel, I stood there, the family's crying, looking at the body, and then all of a sudden, I wait for them to sit down. And the greatest part for a mortician or funeral director is once the family sees the person. And they're satisfied, and they're happy. So they come to see, thank you so much. But the daughter did something I didn't expect. She said, wow. When she turned around and looked at me, she said, wow, are you single? She said, I got somebody I want you to meet. I want you to meet my cousin. And that's not, so I kind of brushed it off. I didn't think that she was serious about this.
You're like, I'm used to that.
Right. So one day, about a year after that funeral, I got an invitation and to attend a baby party. And I was supposed to take this girl with me. And there was a blessing there too, because she got sick with the flu and she couldn't make it. So when I went to the funeral, to the party, then, I was sitting there with a friend. I brought this guy with me, and then the family dedicated a song to me. And then I realized, hey, it was this girl I was supposed to meet. So I met her from there. And like I said, my father-in-law refused to let her go out with me. We had to kind of sneak around. And finally, like I said, when things started happening, there was an incident where we were at a party, and my wife or girlfriend at the time got up to go to the bathroom, and then maybe I'm sitting there with my father and my mother, very uncomfortable. There wasn't my in-laws yet, but very uncomfortable. And all of a sudden we were screaming in the bathroom, and I just got up, and I started running towards the bathroom.
Instinct.
And thinking that something was going on with her. Well, my father was like frantic and stuff, and then when my wife walked back, said it wasn't me then, it was somebody else was screaming. But just me responding to his daughter, his only daughter. From there, it was he told my wife or girlfriend at the time that I think this guy got a little chance. So, and that's kind of how I got over that part.
No, but it's funny because when his was it his sister-in-law or his sister's husband passed away,
His brother-in-law.
Your brother-in-law's, his brother-in-law passed away. They didn't call 911, they didn't call anybody, but they called
They
you
called
first.
me. Yeah, they called me first. And then I told him, hey, you know, although he was on the
Yeah.
doctor's care, I said the
Yeah.
easiest thing to do is call 911.
Yeah.
Have the police come out there. At least they'll coordinate, you know, the pickup, they coordinate everything. So that's kind of like how it started.
So he sees that, and then he sees like, oh, this guy's actually kind of akamai. He's actually not as he's not as lakain lolo as he looks.
Yeah. Well, I think his sister really, you know, produced me to him.
You're right.
And
so she kind of,
she can't believe that, you know, how I was able to just handle everything for her and gave her the reassurance everything was going to be okay. And it wasn't an expected death. You know, he died in his sleep, so it wasn't an expected death. So it was a very emotional time for families to make up their mind, right?
So funny. So she vetted you for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of a thing.
Exactly. She was one of my biggest fans after that.
You know, that's a good point, because I think people don't know what to do when, say, something like that happens.
Exactly.
And growing up, I remember you getting calls all the time, weekly. Pat, such and such, we don't know what to do. Blah, blah, blah. And actually, people don't know what to do. I think part of it is people don't want to talk about it until they have to talk about it. You know, so I mean, it's crazy that there isn't any more like education things out there. I mean, there is, but I think people just don't want to access it because it's like taboo.
The only time that people really find out what needs to be done is unfortunately when somebody dies.
Right.
But it's always good to be prepared. Always good to talk to the family, you know, and talk to your children. Let them know what you really want. I experienced many times making funeral arrangements where the children come in to make arrangements, and I asked them, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to cremate, do a body burial, and they don't know what to do. They said, my dad never talked about it. So because of the cost of burial and stuff, they always go with cremation. And I had several families that contacted me after the arrangement and told me when they went home, they was digging through the dad's things to, you know, kind of clean up the house, and they found a box which had his clothes and his letter and everything in there to the family saying that when I die, I want to be dressed in this. I want to be buried next to my parents at this certain cemetery. And they feel like crap. And they would come back and tell me, oh man, I feel so guilty. And we already cremated, so you can't change that. But I would tell them, it's not your fault. I said, your dad or mom never explained this to you. So this is why it's good to, you know, prepare. You know, all mortuaries just about have pre-need funeral plans, plots that they can do it now with their life and check it out and see what's best for them. But the main thing, letting their children know or their family know what they want, you know, as far as on that.
So with all that, you've seen a lot of conflict with people coming in,
many,
beefing.
Yeah, a lot of renovations in our office. I mean, it was kind of funny.
Did we get that? Is your office lots of renovations because of?
A lot of times, there was many times where family come in to make arrangements, and it's kind of funny. It's like a traditional thing that the one that does the most talking in the arrangement is the one that's not going to pay the bill. Okay, you know, mom, we got to do this and we got to do that. And then when we time to talk about the bill, they'll get up and walk out and go to the bathroom. So I had an experience several, but this one particular one, older gentleman passed away, 90 years old. His wife is 90 years old. And then we start talking about catering. And then she tells me, you know, most of my husband's friends are all dead. So we don't think we'd have more than 100 people counting my family. So I said, okay, I'll write 100. And all of a sudden the son will step in and say, oh no, mom, you know, all my friends are coming. And, you know, I think we should go with 300 catering. And the mom looks at him and looks at me, so okay, if that's what my kids want. So when time to talk about the bill, that son would get up to go to the bathroom. And then I would reach over to the wife and I would say, would you like to change it back to 100? And she said, yes, please. So we changed it back to 100. The funny story is that at the day of the funeral, the son comes up to me and says, thank God we went for 300 people. Look at all these people at the funeral. And there was only like 75 guys there.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just funny. You know, he never knew that we changed the amount down to 100. But that's what happens. Other things happen is where they're making arrangements, and now we're going to talk about who's going to pay the bill. And because mom or dad live with one sibling, they're thinking that all that time the mom and dad lived with them, that the children were saving their money. And so when the mom died or dad died, that they had the money to pay for it. But a lot of times they didn't have the money to pay for it. So the sister would reach over and tell the brother, okay, how are we going to pay for the dad's bill? And the brother would say, what do you mean, how are we going to pay? How are you going to pay? You're the one that had the money. You had dad's Social Security. You had all this kind of stuff.
But I took care of that.
Right. Yeah, so you should be the one paid. And it doesn't happen anyway. So he would start yelling at the sister. Her husband would start yelling at him to calm down. and before you know, they're beefing in there,
Right,
and we just step out, let them bust up the place because we know we're going to have new furniture after that. You know, we had old at Millie Lonnie, we had old Suji doors, those Japanese style doors, and we changed those many times because of the families fighting in there, and people don't realize, but that's stuff that they don't hear about, they don't see. But the families beef. They beef at funerals. They want to know who's going to work the desk, what's going to happen with all the envelopes. And we had fist fights in the chapel because one person wants the box and the other said no, and they're scrapping over the envelopes and the envelopes flying all over the place. But it's stuff like that happens that people don't hear about.
How many times do you think the cops need to be called?
Oh, many times. We had cases where we had a case one time. It was unfortunate, but the dad had previously married. He had a bunch of kids, and he had a girlfriend. He was like 80 years old. He had a girlfriend, and prior to his death, he broke up with the girlfriend, and the girlfriend wanted to attend the funeral. So she came to Mililani, and when she pulled up, the granddaughter noticed her. And the granddaughter told the mom. The mom went outside and said, "Listen, you're not coming to the chapel. My dad didn't want you around. He broke up with you, and that's it." She said, "I'm only here to pay my respects." She said, "I'm just going to go in real quick, see your dad, and I'm going to come out." This woman must have been about 70-something years old. She only stepped one step into the chapel, and the daughter punched her.
Oh my God!
Hey, punched her, man. I mean, and so that's the kind of stuff that people don't know about. They don't see this. We had gotten many threatening phone calls saying that they're going to come there tonight, shoot everybody at the funeral. And we had to notify HPD. They came up there standing by because we expected there was going to be problems. So fortunately, we never had that kind of incident where they come up there and start shooting everybody. You know? But we did have a lot of family fights.
And then so the whole conflict things between families, because if it's like when someone passes away, it's like, okay, I want my piece of the pie. I want this. I want that. And then, like you said, the loudest person in the room is sometimes usually the one that's not making the decision.
Exactly.
So after all that takes place, like what do you see for like the families after? Like, do they still talk?
No, a lot of times they're broken up. A lot of times they're not. That incident ruined the family life. There's been cases where the family's making funeral arrangements, and they will get a call from someone, a sibling, saying, "Mom, so and so's at the house taking dad's TV, taking the furniture out, and taking things out of the house, and he's at the bank right now trying to withdraw dad's money." I mean, it's really sad. But it's the first thing I believe that steps in when death occurs is greed. Everybody don't know what's in it for them. What are they going to get? And I think that's one of the biggest problems. Greed steps in, and
it's stuff that's never belonged to them in the first place. They never worked for it.
And was never expected to go to them.
Crazy. And then so with all these things that you're talking about, with like it comes down to dealing with people. But I guess, like, how did you develop that, like, that conflict resolution, the being able to talk to families in that time of struggle?
I think it was just experience. Just one family after another. Experience different situations and stuff like that, and kind of just, trying to be in support on both sides, because I understood. I mean, a lot of times the family maybe wasn't was to be deserved whatever they thought they were going to get, but I think it was just build up the tolerance of all those years of taking of many different situations with families, and knowing that a lot of times they came out good. We even had a funeral one time where they came in to make funeral arrangements, and I'm taking the information down as far as survivors. And then, so I see the older woman sitting there, I see children, I see another lady, and I would say, okay, wives, I put the wife's name down. And then I would say, okay, children. She said, wait, she's going to go next. I said, who is that? Oh, my husband's girlfriend. And it's kind of strange, but so I put her down. But they get along well. The husband, they were separated for 20 years. The husband had his own house, and the girlfriend lived with him. The wife had her own house. They were happy. And the day of the arrangement, the funeral, they brought a box in for the envelopes, and there was a lock on it. They asked me to hold the key. And after the funeral service the next day, they came into my office, asked me to borrow my office. They opened up the envelopes. They counted envelopes right there. And back then, you could pay after the service. And they paid off the bill, and there was a few dollars left. They split them, and everybody was happy.
Wow!
So it's been some crazy experiences that that you never even imagined that happens.
I feel like this is story time. We should continue with the stories. I think this is the best part about I think not just your industry, but how long you were in, and it's a very like unique, occupation, right? And you cannot help but actually like accumulate all these stories over the years. So, but on that note, what's one of the most bizarre or unexpected things that you experience? I think people are thinking, okay, he works at a mortuary. There's all this spooky stuff. There's this like, people are thinking supernatural, like, but you've never experienced that
No, no.
at all.
People. I have been to
Yeah.
parties where other mortuary employees are there, and they're talking about, oh, the body sat up, or the body did this, and the body did that. All the years, 35 plus years of being in the industry, I never experienced anything negative like that. So it was good for me. I think if I had experienced something negative, I wouldn't be there anymore. One time I was embalming his body, and in the corner, I hate spiders. In the corner of the wall, there's this big, gigantic, big spider, whatever you call it, cane spider. And so I got the strongest embalming fluid, and I shot it, and the thing fell to the ground. I soaked it, so I figured it was dead. Well, 10 minutes later, I'm embalming his body. I have smock, gloves, everything on, and all of a sudden, I feel this on my neck. And man, I gave the biggest yell, bro, ever. And the building was a double wall construction, and the reception was like 50 feet away. And she called the morgue and said, "Was that you yelling?" I said, "No, it wasn't me." But that's really about the only experience. I never experienced people say, like I said, they sat up, they yelled, they scream, or they're being cremated and they're yelling to get out. That never happened.
Yeah,
I think that's just in some other people's mind, but never in me.
I think people they like wanna hear that, like, just because to they have a story, or
exactly.
It's like, and then maybe they watch too much movies or something.
I think so.
Have you heard like the other mortuaries, and they're of course they're your competitors, but you had good relationships with a lot of those people.
Yeah, very Till today. I have a great
and they call upon you for consulting and everything like that.
A lot of families, a lot of different mortuaries still call me after I retired I retired in 2009, but I still get called from a lot of the people that was in the industry. They trust my judgment. They know that I can take care of certain things, and they have conflicts, and a lot of them they'll call me and ask me, "Hey, what can we do? How should we do it? Or can I get involved and help them?" So I have helped many people. Just kind of put the families together again.
So you've been almost like a broker.
Like a consultant. And all these calls I get, I don't charge for my services. So people call me, like you said, when you guys are growing up. I mean, the phone rang 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Most families that get a call that kind of time in the morning, they know it's something bad. But for me, it was like my daily life. There was people that depended on me trying to put things together for them, and calling all kind of hours of the night, as far as on that. So, so kind of different. From anybody else.
No, different for sure. Going back to the unexpected things and things that you've experienced, and again, you didn't experience anything supernatural, but what's some like funny things, or things that even things that spark emotion?
Well, I don't know if it would be funny, but I give you one example. One time I was up at the mortuary, and I didn't, me and your mom wasn't married yet, but I told her, hey, I got to go up there. I got a lady, I got a dress. She has a funeral service the next morning, so if she wants to come with me for the ride, I'll go with you. So we got up there. I made her sit in the back of the chapel, and I was doing her makeup and stuff. And all of a sudden, here's like somebody sniffing in the back, their nose, like they were crying. And I turned around and I looked, and it was Mom. And I said, "What are you crying about?" She goes, "Oh, I feel so sorry for her." I said, "You don't even know her." But that was one. I think the other one that kind of stuck with me was one time my dad's friend from when they were in the military called in that his uncle died and wanted me to help them out. So I was off on that particular Saturday. They want the funeral service to be held at a church, and asked me if I could do it. So I said, "Okay, you guys dress the body, you guys put him in a casket, bring him there, and I'll work the service on Saturday." So they deliver the body, the casket, the pallbearers carry me to the chapel. And the biggest part, like I said, for the mortician is, or the funeral director, is making sure that everything's okay. Once they look at the body, they're all happy, then you're okay. So we went in, they looked at the body, and they were doing their thing. A whole bunch of women was around the body and crying and everything. And then the son looked at the friend and nodded his head, everything was okay. So he said, "Hey, let's go outside and get some coffee." So we went outside, we had some coffee. About half an hour later, maybe longer, we started hearing screaming in the chapel. And so we're outside. So my dad's friend said, "Hey, we better get into the chapel right away." So we go in the chapel. Now, when we left the chapel, everybody was up by the casket crying, paying their respects. When we got there, every single family member was sitting down on the bench. So when I walked up to them and said, "What's the problem?" They said, "That's not my dad." And that was an experience that I never want to experience again. But just so happened, it was the same last name. The morticians, made a mistake. They dressed the wrong guy, sent the wrong guy there. So I ended up calling the mortuary right away. We got the right guy dressed, you know, everything. He brought him up there, and it was like a movie where I asked the pallbearers to carry this guy out and help me carry the new guy in, and everything worked out okay after that. The family understood. It was luckily, you know, it was today.
Yeah. Suit
We would have
up
got
and all
sued like
that.
crazy, but it was, you know, fortunately I knew the family and
Yeah.
my dad's good friends, and everything worked out okay.
But initially they thought it actually was
Oh
their
yeah,
dad.
yeah. You know, there's not a lot of funny stories that happen. I think most of them are just rewarding.
Yeah.
You know, one family that sticks out to me very, very well is the Velasco family, John Velasco, coach from Radford for many, many years. We became just really, really close, like family members. And a lot of the families I took here through all the years were like all my family today. You know, I get invited to their weddings and baby parties and all this kind of stuff, and they respect me so much. But the Velasco family, you know, we grew so close with them in the industry and just helping them one family after another. But when your mom was got pregnant for you know, your brother Keone for her first child, prior to delivering, they threw a big shower at the Mamo and Ornelis's and Willie Billy Ornelis's house. And I mean, that's the kind of relationship I had with these families, where they just, you know, cling to me, and we just became good friends. And unfortunately, you know, Mrs. Velasco and Mr. Velasco passed away, but you know, I'm very close yet with their children. You know, Kanani, in fact, your sister named after Kanani.
Yeah.
You know, so, but yeah, so that's the kind of experiences and things that no one will experience. And I guess that's kind of kept me going throughout the industry. And they used to call me their personal mortician. Yeah, so you're my personal mortician. I said, God, I don't even know what to call that. But it was, you know, I don't regret anything I did. I think, you know, working in the industry was, like I said, a blessing. You know, I was going to become a cop, like I mentioned, but, you know, God has a plan. You know, and I guess this was the place I wanted to be, you know, should be.
So besides rewarding families and because it's kind of, even in real estate, like, we make lifelong friends with a lot of our clients and a lot of the people we serve, because it's like, it's almost like you built up this like great rapport, and like you maximize the trust, you know, and it's hard to do in certain industries. And I think real estate, you know, the mortuary industry, you know, it's obviously, there's that chance to do it. So what kind of families did you get to service, and like, I guess what was the biggest honor for you?
You know, there was a lot of very important people I took care of throughout the years. I took care of the Kahikina Kaka, for example, one of my first services, and that was Kahu, Abraham Akaka's father. So that was a big one. I took care of Ibalani, I can't remember the last name, but entertainers, a lot of entertainers. You know, just a lot of important people, you know, as far as on that. And it was, you know, it was an honor, because the families really depended on me to set everything up. You know, I mean, whether it was a fallen police officer, a fallen firefighter, you know, just, you know, anyone in the limelight of the islands. I mean, I was given an opportunity to handle a lot of good families, good people.
And besides actually meeting like the families and stuff, you also got to meet like other people, like musicians, like not just serving them if they pass, but it's funny in Hawaii. I think I don't know if there's anywhere else like in the mainland or what, where they actually have like music at funerals and good music. So we'll, you know, famous people will come through. Famous to Hawaii.
A lot of you know, Hawaiian musicians. Most of the Hawaiian funerals had musicians, and you know, I mean, it was, I got to meet a lot of people, I mean, from worldwide that came in, you know, that was attending the service and just kind of picked up on me, and we became friends, and we're friends still today.
What is the story we're talking about? Or you always tell this story, but the one where you're vacuuming the chapel.
So there's one particular time, I was cleaning the chapel that night. Me and my boss Richard was vacuuming the chapel like we do normally, and I remember hitting like a rock or something. And it happens all the time. People, you know, walk in with their shoes and bring rocks in there. So the next morning, about 9 o'clock, we get a call, and it's from this old lady, and she says, you know, I'm so distraught, but last night I attended a funeral there. Did anybody turn in a diamond? That she lost her diamond, and not just a diamond. It was like a 3-carat diamond, just a diamond on the prong. And I said, you know, lady, for that big, I don't think anybody would turn it in, you know. So we kind of laughed about it. But then I took her name and number down, and when I hung up, my boss told me, hey, last night, didn't you say that you hit some kind of big rock or something? So I said, okay, let's go check it out. So we went in the back, we grabbed the vacuum, went outside, We put a screen over the rubbish can. We dumped the dust, everything inside. When we dumped it in the tray, there was a shine that came through, like 3 or 4 inches thick of dust and whatever. And my boss said, shit, I think that's a diamond. So we reached for it. And she told me prior to that there was a reward. So there was an incentive to go look for it, right? She didn't say what the reward was. So we found the diamond. I called her up and said, I found the diamond. She said, oh my God, me and my husband was married for 70 years and that would have, really killed me, blah, blah, blah. So I'll be right down and she said, I got a reward for you. And she came down and believe it or not, she gave me a dream cake from Zippy's. And I hate dream cakes till today, okay? So that was one of the things that
you're expecting
I thought, she gave me $1,000 or something, you know what I mean? Or whatever the diamond is worth, maybe I get half of that, but it was funny. But again, it was rewarding seeing them, get their diamond back, I guess,
So I should have just kept it. But you hear about the stories where in the mortuary industry, people steal stuff from the bodies. And
I never experienced that, but there have been cases in the past. Families reported that when the pickup service picks up the remains, whatever it is, that things are missing from the room or from the house. But I never experienced that firsthand. So, so that's something, and I'm glad I didn't experience it. But getting back to the industry itself, I always remind my staff. I had a zero tolerance at Mililani, and my staff all knows it. So if there was any problems, stuff like that, if the family complained once, there's too many complaints. And I would fire them. I would get rid of them, and they all knew that. So either you take good care of the family, or they're not needed at the industry. And I was in charge of the family services division, where we handled complaints, whatever. I was in charge of the sales division, which the industry is a big dollar industry, and so a lot of money was being sold every month. But I would always tell them that if they start getting into a rut or things wasn't working out well for them, I will always remind them that you need to go back to basics. When you first started working in any industry, I mean, you were like, trying to be the best you could, trying to, make the families happy, trying to take care of everybody. And sometimes they lose that. They get to a point in their life where they think that, they're above everybody else and they don't need that. But it shows, families are complaining about, hey, this guy is living rough. For example, maybe they're handling a funeral service and they're ready to close the casket. And most times I would teach them that, hey, you hold the casket lid and you count to 10 and you bring it out slowly. But that's the last time. But there are some directors, I'll be watching them and boom, they slam the cover. They're in a rush to get out. And I would have to always remind them again about that, hey, listen, go back to basics. Whatever you started doing, continue that. If you feel like you're in a rut, continue back to basics. And it works out again. But there is a lot of times that reminders need to be made in the industry that, you gotta, whatever you want to leave as an expression of yourself, it has to be right. It cannot be, just do it because it's your job.
Is it kind of like what would you guys call it in your industry? Like how doctors get bedside manner. What you guys have like a term for how you guys treat people, or just no? This is expected. No.
It's just putting them first, making sure the family's happy, satisfied. But like I said, one complaint is too many complaints. Right. And you don't want anyone going home, and you want them to experience and remember the good times. What happened? Although there was a death, but everything went smoothly. The service went well. The minister went well. The music was nice. The burial was nice. The food was nice after. And they're going to remember how well the service went. And that's the goal in the industry, to make sure the families are satisfied, because it's a one-time deal. If there's a mistake or they got the wrong this or the wrong that, they're going to remember that.
Failure is not an option.
Not an option. And even like when I tell families, when they make arrangements at the cemetery, you don't have to get everything one time. Just take care of the opening, closing, take care of the vault. As far as the headstone, the vases, and other items, do that later, because the headstone is something special. It's the last time you're going to do it for your loved ones. And you want to make sure that whatever you put on there is what you want, right? And you want it to be. So I always tell them, don't, just do the necessity, what needs to be taken care of. And then you can worry about that kind of stuff after. Even as far as when they have the funeral service, a lot of families, they put the funeral off to 1 month, 2 months later, because they want to make sure it's right. They want to make sure the eulogy is correct. They want to make sure the thank you cards are going to be nice. Or whatever it is, what they're going to all wear at the funeral. It's a big production. Really, so. And
so much so where you seen the emotional spending and you actually started your own thing. And it's like, so you started like your own retail business, I guess, for mortuary products, mortuary items, because you've seen working in the industry how expensive these things are, and people tend to emotionally spend. So you started your own.
Yeah. Well, when I retired
yeah.
in 2009, you know, I was getting so many calls. So we decided to open up a small business. And just I did like caskets for oversized guys. I did headstones and urns and stuff like that. But you know, I got so busy that I actually closed the business down
Yeah,
because that was not my goal. My goal was to just open up something
Yeah.
small, be able to help families out, you know, because they couldn't afford the high costs at the mortuary. You know, mine was no overhead, so it was easy to bring it down. But the emotional spending is, I think, the biggest problem. You know, people come to the mortuary and they want everybody to, they want to impress people, the people that's coming to the funeral. A lot of times as a mortician, they would bring the clothing and we put full clothing on, underwear, pants, shirt, jacket, whatever they want. And they would give me something, and I would, like one time they brought a suit for this man. I dressed the man in a suit, and they came in to see the dad prior to the funeral. They looked at him, they said, my dad doesn't look right.
Right.
So I asked them, did your dad always wear a suit? Never did. I said, give me 10 minutes. They go outside, I take off the necktie, open everything up, I pull the shirts up, and I come back inside, and they said, that's my dad.
Yeah.
There's been times that even glasses, you know, people think that the glasses shouldn't be on because you're dead, you're in the casket. But I put the glasses on them. I said, and they said, that's my dad. You know, and nothing's wrong with that. You know what I mean? You know, but it's not to impress anyone is what I'm trying to say. It's what you want. We had a survey one time I asked my staff to do. I said, I want you to stand in the back of the chapel and ask families as they come out what kind of casket the guy had, what color the guy had, you know, casket was. You know, 99% of the people didn't know.
Right.
Because people don't care about that kind of stuff. They want to get in, pay their respects. They don't want to be there. A lot of people are afraid of funerals. They're afraid of bodies, right? They don't want to be there. So someone like me as a mortuary worker, as a mortician, I will notice those things. But on the regular lay people, it's not important to them. So I try to tell families, and I use this story on families all the time, don't impress. If your dad was a simple man, do it simple. Your mom was a simple person, do it simple. Don't have to do it to impress, because these people coming to the funeral are not going to, they're not paying for everything. You're paying for everything. One funny thing is too is that, you know, catering. You know, like how much do we cater for? You know, one thing with a funeral industry and a funeral service is you don't know. It's not like a wedding where you send an invitation knowing that 200 guys are coming. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, you cater and you set it up. And I tell people, if you order for 200 people, 500 people come, you run out of food, people understand.
Right.
But if you throw a party and you invite 200 people, you run out of food, they're going to talk about you the rest of their life. So that's the difference, you know. But as far as, you know, you don't need to impress anybody. Just whatever makes you happy, whatever you're going to remember that you did for mom and dad, that's the most important thing.
Same thing with the eulogy. The eulogy is too long.
Eulogy, I always believe in that. The eulogy should be like 2 minutes. 3 minutes is a lot. I seen people falling asleep in the chapel because the eulogy is like so long, and you know, and it's just going on and on and on, and everybody heard the same story already, you know. So keep it simple, keep it basic, and you know, and it always works out.
What's the most bizarre request you've ever had?
Gosh, I had a family came in to bring clothing, and they brought in, you know, we do all the underwears and everything else, but they brought in this girdle, and they wanted to put the girdle on. And I was like, okay, you know, but, you know, whatever. You know, we put it on, but it's not something that we normally do, you know. So it was kind of funny. I had another story with a family one time, well, many stories, but this one family, before the funeral, the wife contacted me and said, hey, I got a call from my dentist, my husband's dentist, and we owe a bill on his gold teeth. Can you guys take out the gold teeth? And I said, we're not dentists. She said, but the dentist told me if I bring back the gold, that he would credit my account. You know, so I mean, we get those kind of requests that it's like crazy. You know, we never did it. You know, I asked him if the dentist wants to come here and do it, he's welcome to do it. But we're not dentists. We don't do that. But there's been some crazy requests that, you know, people you know, even the terminology of like, you know, what's the product called? You know, people call me up and says I need to buy a urinal, and I say it's not called a urinal, it's called an urn. You know, so, you know, people, it gets kind of funny sometimes, but that's kind of what keeps us going, I guess, in the business. You know, but so.
Yeah. No, I'm going to ask you the transition from the, what would that be called? Like the mortuary side, or op side, or
operational side. So,
to sales and stuff.
So I was mortician, then I went to sales, and then I went into funeral acting, and, you know, kind of did everything, right? And then became vice president.
Okay. And so I want to talk, I'm trying to get across, like, now, okay, you've kind of built your career up, and then now you're at the more upper echelon.
Right.
I want to talk about that, like your whole experience with that. You kind of touched up on it with, like, you know, working with families, talking to people and stuff. But I guess what has your experience been with that? Are you able to talk about that?
Okay, so I was from mortician.
Yeah,
I moved over
mortician.
to doing funeral director work. Still licensed as a mortician.
Yeah.
Did funeral director work, and then became assistant manager, and then became manager, and but still involved overall with everything that still was going on in the departments, whether it was the mortician or the funeral director or the VP.
Do you think people should have college degrees or certifications to be in this business?
Yeah, I think so. I think one thing about Hawaii, to become a mortician, it's a 2-year apprenticeship program. You do a 2-year apprenticeship program, you take a state board exam, you pass that, you take a practical, you license. There's no, like other states, they have licensed funeral directors, licensed funeral arrangers. We don't have that in Hawaii. I think there should be something. The biggest thing that I think that should be created is a board, a regulatory board for the mortuary industry. People are going to understand this. There's nobody you can complain to except the manager. You can go to the mortuary, complain to him about how unsatisfied you was or whatever it is, but it ends there.
Right.
Unless you get an attorney and you're going to fight them and do all that. But if there was a regulatory board that you could go, like a dentist, a doctor, that you could go and file a complaint, there would be members there that would listen to you, and they would either close the license down, or they would fine them or whatever it is, to keep them responsible for what's happening. But that's one thing I think that should be definitely the funeral directors should be licensed. The morticians, of course, are licensed. I've been licensed since 1977 as apprentice and an embalmer, and my license is still good till today. So every year we renew our license, and it's like a college degree. So I keep it going, but it should be something that they should be every year. A refreshing course or whatever it is. And then,
so with your license, is there a continuing education program?
No, there's nothing. So mostly everything in the mortuary industry is really on-the-job training.
Right.
You work on the job, you learn your experience and stuff there, and that's kind of like how it all goes.
Yeah. I think besides the actual learning how to do the things, right, as far as certifications, college degrees, whatever, I think equally so there needs to be something for the customer service side, the people side, the communication side. Because you're right, you go to a lot of these funerals and you might see how the funeral director is speaking to the family, because they're trying to keep timeline, right? And it's like, ooh, you shouldn't be or cringed out.
Well, one thing too that a lot of times used to happen is that they would rush the service, because they have to get to the cemetery on time. Otherwise, the families are charged overtime. And I used to tell them, it's one phone call. We called and said we're running a few minutes late. That's it. Rather than rushing the funeral, trying to close the casket, get them out of there, and they're going to remember that again. You rush them out of that funeral. So that's something important. The other, real quick, is the reason for embalming. Embalming is to preserve and disinfect our remains, to keep it preserve and disinfect until service time. It's not something that's guaranteed it's going to last forever, but it's something that's required by the Department of Health to embalm and to preserve whenever you're going to have the funeral, whether it's a week, a month, or 2 months later. The remains are always ready to go for that particular time.
So why do you think people remember you so vividly?
I guess because I put myself in their shoes. I made myself part of their family. And I stay with them to the end. I'm still with them till today. I mean, there's been years gone by and they still contact me, and I don't forget them. And I think that's what they like about the whole thing, that I didn't just take their money and service them and forget about them. I made it a personal mission that these guys are always going to be part of my family. And stuff like that. Unfortunately, I don't remember a lot of the families. I took care of thousands of families. I'll give an example. A couple of times I'm at a shopping mall or whatever, and someone will come up to me and said, Pat, how are you? And I said, oh, great. I'm thinking, who the hell is this person? And then they go, how's your family, Pat? And I go, okay. So I'm thinking, okay, they know my family. They must be real, personal with me. They know me well. And then I would look at her hand. I see a ring, and I say, oh, how's your husband? And then, how's your family? How's your husband? And she goes, you don't remember me, huh? I go, no. She goes, you buried my husband last year. So it's stuff like that is hard. So now I have a habit. I tell your mom, if I don't introduce you to everybody, I don't know who they are. But as we talk, then I kind of get to remember who they were as far as on that.
But even outside of the mortuary industry, of course, wherever we go, people know you. And some of it is from the mortuary, but some of it is just from building a rapport with people wherever you go. So to the point where we go to Costco and you can't even walk 20 feet in the door without saying hi to 5 people that you know.
That irritates mom. Mom always says, I'll meet you inside. Because she knows how it's going to be. The hardest part, my phone rings all damn day. I retired and I'm on the phone talking to somebody. I say, I'll call my staff. I'll get back to you. And when I hang up, my daughter would say, Dad, you're retired. You don't have a staff. So it's stuff like that. But, I think the overall of all this is do what is right for your family.
Right.
Talk about it, making sure that whatever you want, how you want your life to end, how you want the service to be, it's something you need to talk to your family about, because that's very important. So that way, when the time comes, there's no misunderstanding. I mean, you feel good inside that you did what mom and dad wanted, and whether everyone else agrees to it or not, that's what they wanted. That's what they set up, and do it that way, and that's how I think it should end.
You want to be ready before you're actually ready.
Amen.
Right? In anything.
Yeah.
So we want to thank my dad, Patrick Souza, for being on. Again, worked his way up through the mortuary industry, did almost every job, and of course retired at Vice President of Sales. Very thankful to have you. Thank you for sharing. Any last words of advice before we head out?
Yeah, I think one thing that I want everyone to just do is that do what is right for your family. Have talk about what you want, how you want it to end, how you want the services to be. This way, when the time comes, there's no regrets. The family won't regret that they didn't do what you wanted. This way, whether the rest of the siblings or everybody agree or disagree, do what is right. Write it down, talk to your family, say that this is how I want my service to be, this is what I want and what I don't want, and there'll be no regrets. And I think that everyone will rest in peace after that. How's that? And I think things will work out good.
Be ready.
But thank you for having me, and we'll do this again sometime.
Absolutely. And we'd like to thank Wakalei Country Club for their support and allowing us to use the space. We really appreciate it. And we also like to thank the man behind the camera, Rio Yeager Productions. He's been a joy to work with.